Yo, what's going on YouTube? And welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. It's your boy Kevin Forte. We are taking a look today at the first round matchup in the Honda West Division between the Vegas Golden Knights and the Minnesota Wild. We'll be taking a look and recapping this series in this video. If you guys like what we're doing here at Goal Line Hockey, want to see the latest news around the NHL and more videos just like this one here in the 2021 Stanley Cup playoffs, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and an even bigger subscribe down below. So let's take a look at this matchup between the Wild and the Golden Knights. So this series started off a little bit interesting, if we're going to be completely honest. The Minnesota Wild took game one of this series in Vegas in overtime. It was a shutout through the first 60 minutes. Marc-Andre Fleury and Cam Talbot put on an absolute duel. They were playing really well in this game. But the Minnesota Wild come out on top in game one. And they always say, especially in the Stanley Cup playoffs, you're never in trouble in a series until you lose at home. And Vegas lost game one of this series at home. It was a goal from Joel Eriksson Ek, 3:20 into overtime. And what a game by Cam Talbot. A 42 save shutout for Cam Talbot in game one. He was unreal. And a 29 save night out of 30 shots from Marc-Andre Fleury really wasn't a bad game for him either. But it did take a deflection in front, I think off of Alec Martinez. And that ended up being the game winner for the Wild. A little bit of puck luck in overtime. But the fact they were even able to get into overtime in a scoreless game with the Vegas Golden Knights at home, that's a tough road. That's a tough assignment for the Wild, and they found a way to pull out in game one. Now, game two was a little bit of a different story. We started to see the Vegas Golden Knights assert a little bit of momentum. As in game two, they took this one not without a little bit of controversy early on. Matt Dumba got the first goal of the game, so the Minnesota Wild take the lead. And once again, we're seeing the Wild dominate, especially in that first period. They played quite well. And then we start to see things shift in the second period, or later in that first period. Matt Dumba scores in the second period, a little more than halfway in. And less than a minute later, the Vegas Golden Knights respond. And they score their first goal of the postseason. Jonathan Marchessault, a huge goal for the Vegas Golden Knights to kind of just shut down the Minnesota Wild's momentum after that Dumba goal. That was a huge goal. And you know what, just to add the cherry on top, before the end of the period, 5 minutes later, it would be Alex Tuch scoring a goal, and that ended up being a theme of this game. The former Minnesota Wild draft pick that was sent to the Vegas Golden Knights in the expansion draft. Yeah. Big goal there for Alex Tuch. So now we go into the third period, and the Wild are reeling a little bit. They gave up those 2 goals, and the Vegas Golden Knights had responded. And then Alex Tuch scores again toward the end of regulation. A power play goal in the final minute of the third period. Alex Tuch, second of the game, and the Minnesota Wild lose this one 3-1 on the road. But it's okay. They split the series in Vegas. Now they have to take care of business at home and potentially put the Vegas Golden Knights back against the wall going into game 5. Well, let's see how it turned out. So now going into Minnesota, the Golden Knights took care of business, a 5-2 victory in game number 3. Again, though, a good start by the Wild. Ryan Hartman and Joel Eriksson Ek with the goals in the first period. But then the response in the second period from Vegas was too much to handle. Mark Stone, Patrick Brown, and Riley Smith each scored their first of the postseason. And going into the third period, it's a 3-2 lead for the Vegas Golden Knights. And the storyline didn't really change. We see William Karlsson score to make it 4-3 late in regulation. 4-2 in regulation, my bad. And then Mark Stone scores his second of the game. It's an empty netter with less than a minute to go. And his second of the postseason. And it's a 5-2 win for the Vegas Golden Knights. So now, they have now split the series if Minnesota wins game 4. And that didn't even happen. Now, going into game 4, this is a big game for Minnesota. They have to win this one. There's no way they go back to Vegas in game 6 or in game 5 and take care of business if they can't win either of their home games, right? Well, they go down early. And this was not a great game here by the Wild. Just bad execution. Not able to get what they needed done. Nicholas Roy scores in the first period, makes it 1-0. The second period woes continue for the Minnesota Wild. Now in 2 games, they've given up 5 goals in the second period. They give another goal up to former Minnesota Wild prospect Alex Tuch. And Mark Stone, the captain, scores his 3rd of the postseason. Yikes, not a good night for the Wild again in the second period. And an empty netter for Nicholas Roy, his 2nd of the game, 2nd of the postseason. And that puts an exclamation point on this series. Now the Minnesota Wild going into Vegas have to somehow find a way to win after losing 3 straight, 2 at home. How would they possibly win Game 5 on the road in Vegas? Well, yeah, they kind of did exactly that. With their backs against the wall, the Minnesota Wild made it a series, winning 4-2 in Vegas. And despite only getting 14 shots on net compared to the Vegas Golden Knights' 40, the Wild doubled the Vegas Golden Knights in terms of goals. Mark Stone would get his 4th of the postseason. That would start the party off in this one. But Kirill Kaprizov would get a timely goal a little less than a minute after that Mark Stone goal. Kaprizov's 1st of the postseason, his only goal of the postseason. But it was a big one. And then Zach Parise comes in 2 minutes later after that Kaprizov goal, makes it 2-1 Minnesota. And the Wild seem to be running away with this one. Jordan Greenway would score another 5 minutes later before the end of the first period. And now it's 3-1 Wild going into the second period. Once again, the Minnesota Wild give up a goal in the second period. Alex Martinez scores his 1st of the postseason just before the halfway mark of this game. And it's a big one. Keeps them in the game. But at the end of the day, Nico Sturm gets the empty netter with less than a minute left in regulation. A 4-2 victory for the Minnesota Wild. A big one on the road with their backs against the wall. Didn't seem like they would have the energy to come back in this series and make it a game. No, they did. Give a lot of credit to the Wild. And really, at the end of the day, Cam Talbot, who stopped 38 of 40 shots. What a game for Cam Talbot. He had some really good games in this series. Kind of surprised me, if I'm going to be honest. He had a good season, but against the Vegas Golden Knights in the postseason, he did a really nice job out-dueling Marc-Andre Fleury at certain points in this series, and that's a very difficult task to accomplish. So now, Game 6, you have to think, all right, well, they weren't able to win the first 2 at home, and they somehow miraculously won Game 5 in Vegas. There's no way they win Game 6 in Minnesota. Hold your beer on that one. They did exactly that. A 3-0 shutout. A statement win for the Minnesota Wild at home. And they were able to limit the Vegas Golden Knights only 23 shots that game. So give Cam Talbot a little bit of a break in this one. We only saw goals in the third period. The first and second period were held scoreless. It wasn't until over 4 minutes into the third period we saw Ryan Hartman get his 2nd of the postseason to make it 1-0. And the floodgates opened up after that. 9:35 into the first period, third period. Kevin Fiala scores his 1st of the postseason. Another guy you were hoping to see a little bit more of throughout the series. Guys like Kaprizov and Fiala were held scoreless throughout most of this series. And Kevin Fiala would score. Nick Bjugstad would score a backhander in the final 5 minutes to make it 3-0. And this was now a series heading back to Vegas, where now the Minnesota Wild have won a game at home and on the road with their backs against the wall. Well, now how would they do their second turnaround in Game 7 against the Vegas Golden Knights? With the Golden Knights back against the wall, well, the storyline changed. A great game overall. I have to say, I watched most of this game, and it was a great game. But there's one guy in particular that stands out. And that is Matthias Janmark, who has not scored this entire postseason. He would score a hat trick in this game. Zach Parise would score. Kirill Kaprizov, each of them, Parise and Kaprizov, would each get their 2nd of the postseason in this game. Max Pacioretty, who has been out since March, got his 1st goal in his 1st game back with the Golden Knights. You could tell the way he was playing in this game that he was going to get some opportunities, and he did. He gets a big goal, the game winner, making it 3-2. And that was it. The Vegas Golden Knights were able to score 2 more late. Empty netter, make it 6-3. A huge victory for the Vegas Golden Knights. And now they head on to the Colorado Avalanche. Now, I just want to look at the key points of this series. Fleury was on top of his game, and you got to give credit to Cam Talbot because Cam Talbot played really well this postseason for the Minnesota Wild. I have to be honest, that signing by Bill Guerin last summer, I was not a huge fan of that. I was not a fan of Cam Talbot coming out of Edmonton and Calgary. He came out of that Western Alberta a complete wreck. But what he's done in Minnesota, give a ton of credit to Cam Talbot. Kind of looks like he did back when he was with the New York Rangers before he got sent to Western Alberta. And now that he's left Canada, he seems to be playing a lot better again. So great stuff out of Cam Talbot. And for the Minnesota Wild's goaltending, makes it look a little bit better that they let go of Dubnyk. That has not really turned out so well for Dubnyk. And we're starting to see Cam Talbot really establish himself as the starter, really until a guy like Kaapo Kähkönen really develops and becomes that next guy for the Minnesota Wild. But, another thing, Kaprizov and Fiala. I mean, Kirill Kaprizov was held to only 2 points in 7 games this postseason. Kevin Fiala had the only 1 goal in Game 6. That was it. So those 2 guys who the Wild rely a ton of in terms of their offensive production were really held off the score sheet for the most part, as well as Joel Eriksson Ek, who only had 2 goals this postseason. One was the game winner in Game 3, and one was the overtime winner in Game 1. And other than that, Joel Eriksson Ek was pretty quiet throughout most of this series. A great shutdown centerman, and we've seen him frustrate the top players in Vegas throughout this series. So there's a lot to like about Joel Eriksson Ek. I think he is a huge piece of the Wild moving forward. A guy that, let's be honest, even as soon as last season, fans were like, is this guy a bust? What's going on with this Eriksson Ek guy? Nah, he's turned into a really solid player, a great two-way guy, but he's going to have to put up more points next season for the Minnesota Wild as they continue this retool. Bill Guerin has done a lot of good things with this team, and like I said, in between the pipes, solidifying it with Cam Talbot, and starting to see the emergence of guys like Joel Eriksson Ek and Kevin Fiala, not to mention Kirill Kaprizov. You really have to like the signs of improvement from the Minnesota Wild this year. You have to give some credit, though. We're going to head to the Vegas side of things. Mark Stone, Alex Tuch, and Matthias Janmark were shining bright in this series. Janmark played really well in Game 7, a hat trick for him. Mark Stone has 4 or 5 goals this postseason in this series, so a great series from Mark Stone. And Alex Tuch also put in 3 or 4 goals this postseason in this series against his old Minnesota Wild team, so a great way for him to get some revenge on his former club. And you have to give some credit to the special teams. The Vegas Golden Knights penalty kill was really solid. They really shut down the power play of the Minnesota Wild, who, like I mentioned, like I said, they shut down the big boys. Joel Eriksson Ek, Kevin Fiala, Kirill Kaprizov, and even guys like Zach Parise, who was actually scratched at points in this series. So a lot of changes could be happening here in Minnesota. I think they have a lot of improvement from where they've been really the last 2 years. But Bill Guerin has done a very nice job, a quick turnaround for a team that, let's be honest, 2 years ago was not looking in the best of shape. And the fact that they took the Vegas Golden Knights in the postseason to 7 games in this series, you have to give a ton of credit to them. And I did say going into this series, this could be one of those series where maybe Minnesota throws the Vegas Golden Knights off guard. And I think Vegas let off the gas a little bit when they went up 3-1. A little bit confident coming back home from those 2 games in Minnesota. The Minnesota Wild made them eat a little bit of dirt going into games 5 and 6 and really showed a lot of truculence and a lot of desperation to take this to 7 games. They just didn't have enough in the tank. So guys, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. What do you think of this series between the Vegas Golden Knights and the Minnesota Wild? Honestly, it was one of the better series I saw this postseason. Game 7 wasn't all that great. The Vegas Golden Knights really handled the Wild for the most part after that goal by Pacioretty. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. And if you guys like what we're doing here at Goal Line Hockey, want to see the latest news around the NHL and more Stanley Cup playoffs coverage here in 2021 and beyond, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and an even bigger subscribe down below. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you guys next time.